Hey, what's going on, guys? I know that when it comes to this video, this video's already been out for a week and a half, and a lot of people have put reaction videos up to it. I had a friend send this to me, Dope Builds, who sent me this video and said, you have to watch how they build a computer. He builds computers, I build computers. I mean, I work IT in my normal job, so this should actually be pretty funny. But apparently this was so bad that they had to disable their comments. They had to remove their like to dislike ratio. And then I think like a day later, they ended up deleting the video entirely. Luckily, the internet never forgets. They never forget. So luckily, somebody else re-uploaded it so that for all of us to enjoy together. So without further ado, let's play this thing. I have not seen this video yet. I've heard of it. I have not seen it. So let's see.
So a few years ago, TC, or Managing Editor, built a gaming desktop, but it's
presented
kind
by
of out of
Capital
date,
One.
and it's definitely not going to hold up for
Oh, no.
Battlefield 5. So let's build a new one.
Let's build a new one.
You can build a gaming desktop for around $1,000, but I
More or
want to
less.
go all out, so I spent around $2,000.
All
A
out
PC
is
like this is going to be able to
$2,000.
play
Alright, whatever.
most games at ultra settings. So what do you need to build a desktop? Well, of course, first you need a table.
You need a table. You cannot build this on the floor. So step one, you need a table. Step two, you better have two hands. And they better have 10 digits. And you better have two eyes. Because you're going to be severely handicapped if you only have one. And don't blink a lot. Wow. That's where we're going with this. Right out of the gate, you need a table. Oh my God, why does he have a Swiss Army knife? What the hell is this? And an Allen wrench? Okay, hold on. Let's just hopefully he goes over it.
Preferably not metal. If it's going to be metal, have an anti-static working surface layered
Okay.
on top of it, a thermal paste applicator, an Allen wrench, some tweezers to tighten up the wires.
Tweezers to tighten up the wires. Those are zip ties. They're not tweezers. What in the hell do you need an Allen wrench for? There's nothing that you would need an Allen wrench for. Unless he used that Allen wrench to put together the table. Maybe that's what he did. And you can go ahead and throw your thermal paste applicator away. You don't need that.
A Swiss Army knife, which hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver in it.
A Swiss Army knife that hopefully has a screwdriver in it. So he's going to build this computer with an Allen wrench, a pair of tweezers, and hopefully a screwdriver. He's going to build this thing on hopes and dreams.
And
what is that?
last but not least,
Hold on. Here's the other thing. This is your thermal paste right here. It's in a syringe. You just put like a pea-sized dot on the middle of the CPU and you're done. You put that on there, you put the cooler on, it spreads. You don't need an applicator. You don't need it. Throw that applicator away. But what is this?
an anti-static bracelet, which is to protect you and the parts.
That is not a anti-static bracelet. An anti-static bracelet usually is like a Velcro bracelet that has a cable that comes out that you clip it to something metal to ground yourself. That's like a what would Jesus do bracelet or a hair tie. Or just a regular rubber band. And what do you need protection for? Nothing that you're working with is powered on. There's nothing that you would need protection over.
The motherboard is like the foundation, serving as a main structure for all other parts to be added to. It also allows the other parts to communicate with one another, which also makes it kind
Those tabs are in the wrong place. They're normally right here. Whatever, they got that wrong. It's just a drawing.
of PC parts, so it's best you unbox them, isolate the parts that
What?
so it's best you unbox them, isolate the parts
Why did he destroy the box? Dude, you have a knife right there, man. You have a knife. Why did you demolish your box? Listen, I normally keep my boxes because, one, if the part's bad and I need to send it back, hey, guess what? I already have a box for that. Or I might use it to store cables or whatever, but you have a knife and you demolished your box. You Hulk smashed out of that box. All right.
parts that you really need, place items into the case, and make sure that they
Hope he
all
flips
fit,
that.
and then start working. And now we're really going to start building by adding the motherboard in. Some notes
Why?
about installing motherboards: they're really delicate, you should be really careful with them, and screw in with confidence, but also don't screw in too hard, otherwise you could crack the board.
Screw in with confidence. Why are you putting the motherboard in already? Oh, at least he put the posts in. He didn't tell. It's a tutorial. They didn't tell you to put the posts in, but luckily he already did it, and you just have to figure it out on your own. But two, don't ever put your motherboard in first. Install everything on here, with the exception of the graphics card. put the CPU in, put the CPU cooler in, put the RAM sticks in. See, look, this RAM stick has those things at the bottom. They're not up here at the top like that illustration, but whatever. That's normally what you do first, and then you drop it all into the case. You don't put it in the case because you're limiting your work area.
I chose Asus's Z370 motherboard for two main reasons. One, it has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and also it has support for NVMe SSDs, meaning you can get really fast SSDs that are really easy to install. Pay close attention to the brace that goes at the back of the computer. You always have to make sure that you really hammer it in, because
hammer it in. That's okay. It's not a brace. It's IO shield. But you don't need to hammer those in. They have the slot cut out for you. They just snap into place. Some cases can give you a little bit of a pain in the ass with them, but there's never any point where I was like, man, I really wish I had a hammer. Does he hammer it in?
There's no screw. It really just has to go outside of the case and clasp onto the frame. And this is very important because otherwise you can't align the motherboard correctly with the holes.
You can't align. Okay, so he's using this whole motherboard to align with these holes. Not the holes where the screw posts are. It's this thing. If he does not have the IO shield, then he has no idea how to put this motherboard in because nothing will line up.
We're just going to start installing all 8 screws.
Oh, don't do it yet. Do it with your shitty screwdriver.
So next we're going to install the RAM on the motherboard. I chose Corsair's 16GB Vengeance LED RAM for two main reasons. One, it has LEDs and we do like lights in our gaming desktops. Secondly, it's pretty fast RAM. It's 2666 megahertz, I believe. So it's pretty fast, this motherboard supports that speed.
3200 and up might be fast.
Open the slots first and just align.
Okay, I don't know why he's opening all 4 DIMM slots. He only has 2 sticks of RAM.
Aligning the stick with the middle.
He's putting this in wrong already. There's the little notch right there, and there is the hole. You could tell right now this is not lined up. He's already doing it wrong. He's putting it into slot 1, which is fine. So you should put it slot 1, slot 3. Or they sometimes refer to it as A1, B1, A2, B2. But we'll just call it 1, 2, 3, 4 for argument's sake. He's already putting it in upside down. He's not going to be able to snap this in.
Middle of the strip, not with the end, and just lining that up with the logo.
Oh, they cut away.
So once you hear that,
they cut away because he was putting it in wrong. So they had to redo it.
That solid clasp.
So again, it's in slot 1.
Connectors on the side anymore.
Now he's in slot 4. Who edited this? They showed him put it. Okay, if this was like a tutorial you were trying to follow, he put it in slot 1. They cut away. We was starting to put it wrong in slot 1. They cut away. He put it in apparently right because it snapped in. And then in the next scene, it's not even in slot 1 anymore. It's in slot 4. But at least it's the right way.
That's when you know the RAM is in. Step 3, we're going to install the hard drive, or in this case, the NVMe SSD. I chose this format of solid-state drive so that I could input it into the motherboard without having to worry about extra wires or putting it in a separate part of the case and just getting really messy.
Okay, an M.2 drive is insanely fast. If a normal SSD gets 500 to read and 500 write, an M.2 drive can get up to like 2,000 read and write. You don't just pick an M.2 drive because you want less wires. Oh.
This is from Kingston, and it's 480 gigabytes, so it's not a lot, but you can always upgrade this and swap.
He didn't put the post in. There's a standoff post that you have to put, okay? Because right now that thing is like this. It's like that. The standoff post keeps it level. So it sits against the standoff post, and then you put the screw in. If he just puts the screw in, he's just screwing it directly into the motherboard with no standoff post. So he's adding pressure. Oh no.
Swap it out, and it's only held down by one screw and the latch, so it's really simple and really straightforward. Speed for gaming is important when it comes to a hard drive. You want files to write quickly, and you want games to load quickly.
No,
so that's why it's
flat.
best if you use.
He's still. Okay, so I just see that his RAM is in spot 3 and 4. If that's dual channel memory, normally you have to put it in 1 and 3. Sometimes the motherboard will require you to put it in 2 and 4. But they have to be spaced apart or you're losing the dual channel memory. If this computer posts at all, sometimes if you put the memory in wrong completely, the computer might not even post. But let's say that it posts. That is only going to read 8 gigs. That's not going to read 16 because one of them's installed incorrectly. Be surprised if this thing posts.
Okay, so step 4, we're going to install the graphics card. I
Still in the
chose
wrong
PNY's GTX 1080, which is overclocked.
I'm kind of seeing if they edit
and so
this
it's
and
a
that
pretty
RAM's
easy
in the right
installation.
place.
You're just going to
Right
find the
place
gold
now.
connectors, and you're going to line this bracket with the back end bracket of your PC case. Now, which lane you choose depends entirely on what other parts you're going to put in the system. I'm just going to pick the top one because the SSD is at the bottom and I don't want to cover it. I just think it looks nice.
He's picking the top lane because he doesn't want to cover up the M.2 drive and he thinks it looks nice. Now, as luck would have it, he actually chose the right spot. But there is a big difference in what you pick. That does need to be in the top slot because that's an X16 slot. The other slot's probably an X8 slot. So thank God he flipped the coin and actually chose the right slot, but that's not why he chose the slot. And the RAM is still installed wrong.
I chose Corsair's 850 watt power supply because I need enough headroom for ray tracing GPUs when they come out, and I don't want to have to upgrade it again. So all you have to do is take the brick and make sure that you align it with these little insulating.
Okay, I hope that he flips this around because the fan's on the other side. You don't want to push it against this back.
Pads. So the power.
Those are not insulating. Hold on, did he say insulating pads?
Align it with these little insulating pads so that the power supply doesn't short circuit and come into contact with the rest of the system.
What? Okay, those are not insulating pads. Those are anti-vibration pads. And that's only there so when the fan spins, it doesn't cause any kind of rattle in your case. That's all that they're there for. They're not insulating pads. And 2, you will not short circuit your PSU if you put it in there and it makes contact with your case. That is so dumb. It's a good thing he has What Would Jesus Do bracelet on, or he'd be really screwed.
So just take it in.
What would Jesus say? He's putting it in wrong.
Until you have a snug fit, and then
now he's suffocating his power
supply.
supply.
Make sure it's right up against the frame.
Okay, do they edit this again so that you can see that he puts it in right? He pushed that fan against the back of the plate. That fan does not blow air. That fan sucks in air.
Now you just take the required screws and you tighten and screw in. So next step, we're going to install the CPU core. In this case, it's going to go on the top.
You still don't even have the
case,
CPU in.
and we're just going to have the hose hang out for a little while until we install the processor, which is going to come a little later. Always be sure to try to place it in the system.
I could see through this. There is no fan here. Okay, so I don't think this case supports the fans being on the outside like this. I think these are just the post screws for the glass to sit on. So he cannot put the fans at the top. So the fans need to go on the bottom. So if this was an actual tutorial, he would show people that you have to screw the fans in with the long screws. You screw in the fans and then you install it and then mount it. You don't put this in without the fans because now that you've also put your graphics card in, you're not going to be able to get a screwdriver in there.
System first before you install it, because you can see it takes.
He also doesn't have the plastic cover on this. That has thermal paste on it. If that thing happens to tilt or anything else, he's just going to smear thermal paste everywhere. Possibly get it dirty. Oh my god, man. No.
A lot of space. But in this case, no pun intended, it fits in perfectly. And we're going to start screwing it in. And so there's nothing special about this screwing in process. They're just really long screws because they go through the entire frame of the cooler.
Okay, those long screws are not meant. You're not supposed to drive a screw in all the way through your radiator. You're going to puncture your radiator. Those long screws are for the fans. And they're long because it has to go through the fan and into that radiator. If he's using the long screws to mount this thing on here, he's now jacked his entire radiator.
And they take forever.
Because you're doing it wrong. They're actually very small screws.
Every power supply is going to come with a big bag of Velcro cables. It's kind of daunting.
Okay, no. If you get a fully modular power supply, which is what he has, then it's going to come with cables. Not always going to be in a bag. Sometimes it's just going to be in the box. But if you can get a half modular that already has a 24 pin coming out, that's just built in, and then you can get a normal power supply that they're all built in. So that's not right.
At first, so you always have to find the ones that are going to fit.
That's not
In this
hard.
case, you need to match.
It's adult
those
Legos. You
cables
don't
with the correct descriptions on the power.
Okay, and normally too, you plug in all these cables before you put this in here. Luckily, he has a nice case that he can get to these with no problems. But normally you want to put all the cables that you'll need, you plug them all in before you install it in the case. And for the love of God, flip your goddamn PSU around because you're suffocating it. Look at this room. He's going to kill his power supply.
Next step is we're connecting the power supply to the motherboard with a 24-pin cable. We're just matching that cable from the motherboard, threading it through the back,
plugged it into
and attaching the 24-pin header to the power supply. You better
pull that thing all the way
so we can
through.
have one of the connections complete. The next few additions will be...
He didn't pull it through! Look how big this is! Dude, you're horrible at cable management.
For the GPU, for any specific ports that the case has, for any lighting that the case has, the CPU cooler, anything else really. We're installing the CPU,
Intel Confidential, that's an engineering
of the computer
sample.
or the brain, depending on how you look at it.
It's the heart of the computer or the brain, depending on how you look at it. No, I would say that your power supply would be the heart because that's what's providing electricity for everything. Just like your heart pumps your blood for all... That it's the brain. Whatever, I'm nitpicking. He still just pulled this thing out. Oh, no.
So to do this, we're just going to remove the plastic covering that they put on the motherboard.
Uh-huh.
We're just going to take this little plastic part out. We'll just toss that out of here.
Don't do that. No. No! Okay, you want to keep that plastic piece because if you ever pull out your motherboard, you could put that to protect the socket. Or if you need to send it back because this motherboard is DOA, they sometimes require you to put that plastic piece back in, again, to protect the socket. Don't ever throw that aside. Just set it to the side. Don't throw it aside. You do need it.
And now we have an exposed CPU holder, or rather slot,
holder
on the motherboard.
Could be a
and
socket,
we're going to use
but I think
the CPU applicator. This is a special little part that not everyone may.
Okay, all you need to do for the CPU is simply just put it in the socket. It has notches. You line up those notches and you line up the arrows and you just drop it in. It's not. He's taking the thermal paste applicator where all the contacts are and jabbing this plastic holder on here. This installation tool.
May get, but this motherboard that we got from ASUS definitely does have. It's called a CPU installation tool. It makes it really useful if you want to install a Core i7 hexa-core CPU. Yeah, we've got one, and it's an 8th generation chip, and it's...
I just noticed he had a slur in his S's. Okay, that's an Intel Confidential, which means it's an engineering sample. Second of all, an i7 8th generation chip, they're everywhere. Like, if this would have been like the top-rated i9 or something, then you can brag about having that. But that's, like, pretty standard. Anybody can buy that anywhere. I don't know why he's like, yeah, we got one. Son of a bitch.
It's ready to go, and it supports overclocking. So what
I swear to God, you better not overclock
installer
it.
does for you is it's basically a brace.
You'll blow your
that
thing
you can
up.
apply
Didn't they
right
already
to
do
the
this?
CPU and light it up with the triangles that you'll see on the bottom left corners.
Line it up with the
And
triangles
this will
instead
make
of
it
the
easier
socket.
for us to apply it to the motherboard and then apply thermal paste and then apply a CPU cooler on top. And we're just going to carefully
Okay, he said apply
lead it down
thermal
into the
paste.
system and make sure that everything lines up, and we're going to clasp down on it and we'll be good to
The holder's right here. So he manhandled the CPU and he went, but you know what? Let's put it in the holder. Let's be extra delicate. Jab this plastic thing into it. And then we're going to gently put it on there, but be prepared because you need to get rid of this holder to put it back in the socket. Oh no.
go. So we're about to apply thermal paste to the CPU.
Why?
Every CPU cooler actually comes with a bit of thermal paste already neatly applied in a circle around it, but it's usually not enough. It's good, essentially PC building practice to have a little bit extra. And
It is not good CPU build practice to have a little extra. And how much is he putting on?
layer it on top of the CPU. The final
He's drawing a house!
portion
And he's getting ready to put one in the middle. So there's a dot here, 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 and then he's getting ready. Oh my God, man, no! So he's adding all of this thermal paste onto it, but he's also going to leave the already applied thermal paste on the cooler. Okay, normally when you get it in, best PC practice, you can use what's on the cooler. You can use that. However, you don't know how long it's been sitting there, and two, you don't know the quality of said thermal paste. So usually you could take alcohol and clean that off. If you don't have thermal paste, use what's on there. But if you do have thermal paste and it's the higher quality thermal paste, clean it off the cooler. Put about, okay, so these two dots right here, He could just, if he wanted to be overly generous, connect these 2 dots into one right here. That would be more than enough. You do not need to draw a house. He acts like he's applying mustard to a piece of bread.
Is to add the CPU cooler to the top end of the processor. So you're gonna see that there are
Look at the, he still hasn't fixed the RAM. Look at all this. That is so much. So there's already some on the cooler right here. He's now coated. First of all, where did his thermal paste applicator come in? And he still hasn't used the damn Allen wrench. The only thing that comes to mind in looking at this is imagine a ketchup packet slowly being ran over, right? As it gets further down, ketchup right out the sides. I feel like that's going to be all over your motherboard. That is way too much. And fix your goddamn RAM.
4 brackets, or rather like screws in here with brackets and holders right here.
Brackets and holders. Everything is brackets and holders and slots.
Off the processor, but it's also going to be close enough to actually physically come in contact with it, like basically keep it cool.
Basically. He said that essentially this is going to be barely touching the CPU, and that's what it's going to be used to keep it cool. No, that is going to be screwed hard into your CPU. That has to apply the pressure, which is what caused your thermal paste to spread. Oh my, I don't want. You better not overclock this thing.
Screws like this, and just screw them on.
Hey, thanks for showing us, man.
So now that our internals are done, we're gonna put all the panels back on, which is the top glass, side glass, front glass, and of course the back panel where all of this fun stuff.
Hey, look, that's the back panel, and it's slotted for the fan for the power supply to pull air from. Why was that not another clue?
Stuff is happening. So we fully built the piece.
Dude, look at this. Okay, this is power for a CPU. Why? He went through this hole and all the way up here. There's a hole at the top, man. Just run it through and plug it right in. And you're... Okay, granted, there's not a whole lot you could probably do with the tubing. I mean, you could probably move it out of the way, but look at this 24-pin connector. And what the hell is all this? Oh, my God. Oh, no, and I just...
We've got one to the top end of the processor. In contact with it, we're going to put all the panels back on. Built the PC, everything's put together, and we got to the post screen.
No way.
So what's next? Well, you need a USB flash drive with your Windows installation media on it, and of course, a license key. So I plugged that up, installed Windows in a couple of minutes.
Sorry, man, you cannot install Windows in a couple of minutes. And depending on what version you have on that flash drive, your updates will take a good hour.
Installed a bunch of drivers, and now we have a fully functioning gaming PC ready to run some.
I really want him to open up. I really want him to open up Computer Manager and see if it's pulling and if it's reading all 16 gigs, because he still never fixed the memory. I have a feeling it's only reading 8.
Got Armor 3 running at maximum settings, native resolution, which is 1080p HD, and it's running pretty smoothly. Like, I'm averaging 70 and 80 FPS, and this.
You're averaging 70 and 80 FPS because you're in a plane flying around. The game really only needs to detail render your plane. Everything else is like half rendered because you're going so fast. So that's how they hide it with motion blur and all that stuff. Oh, get on the ground. I want to see what frame rate you pull on the ground.
This is normally like a very intensive game to run, and it's still doing a pretty good job.
It's probably still do
so
good.
Right now I'm playing League of Legends.
I don't know if it'd be that good.
It's one of my favorite
League of
games.
Legends.
I'm actually playing against a bot, and I'm distracted, so I'm not actually doing so well. But otherwise...
He's playing against a bot, and he's almost dead. 2, you do not benchmark a computer with League of Legends. League of Legends could run on the shittiest of laptops. It was designed that way. It was designed that way.
Guys, like, this is pretty much what you would see me do on a gaming computer.
Spamming
Test
Q
stuff out,
and left and right.
And hopefully have really high frame rates like I am right now. I'm averaging 120
Look at him. He's spamming left and right click, and he's spamming Q.
20 FPS, and that's only because I've actually locked the game to that frame rate, because I can get around 300 FPS playing League on maximum settings, which is a little bit absurd, and you don't really need that, so I...
Okay, if you were getting 300 FPS, again, it's League of Legends, 1. 2, you probably had to scale it back to 120 because maybe the refresh rate on this monitor is 120. And if you have it at 300, your monitor might struggle to keep up with it. Your computer's fine, it's just your monitor can't keep up. But I've never heard someone say, I could get 300 FPS, but you know what, that's absurd, and I'm going to cap it at 120. That's like going, hey man, I can get 144 hertz, or on my 144 hertz monitor, I can pull 144 frames per second. But that's stupid. I'm going to drop it to 60 because that's enough.
Locked it. Building a gaming desktop has been a great experience. I'm able to max out a lot of my favorite titles, and I'll be able to play a lot of upcoming titles like Battlefield 5 and Cyberpunk 2077
No, you won't.
without worrying too much about the parts I have. When ray
Except the
tracing
fact that you
GPUs come
melted
out,
them.
for example, I'll be able to upgrade without having to buy
Please
a
don't go near a
completely
ray
new
tracing
system.
CPU
And
or
if I have a
graphics card.
problem down the line, I can always just swap out a part and have it serviced rather than losing my whole computer.
Serviced.
And of course now
You're gonna
we
lose
also
your
have
whole
a
computer,
computer
man.
to test and benchmark games here at the Verge.
Presented by Capital One. We put the FU in tutorials. Oh my god, man. This is a train wreck. I could see why everyone's reacting to this now. This is bad. This is so bad. I see now why they deleted the video. Oh, I can't even watch it anymore. I'm done. I don't want to watch anymore. Don't ever follow that. That's a horrible idea. You should be ashamed of yourself. Stupid. I'm going away. Bye.